Hello, everyone. In this video, we will give a guide and tips for chapter 19 of my Java book. Chapter 19 introduces generics. Now, let's look at this section first on the motivations and the benefits of generics. Generics was introduced since Java 5. Prior to Java 5, we don't have generics. So this is the code. Since Java 5, we have generics for the comparable interface. Prior to Java 5, this is what we have. It's the comparable interface without generics. Now you can see the difference when you compare with object, and here when you compare with the same type, you are comparing. Now let's look at the code here. In Java 5, you write this new date. So here's comparable date, and you compare C with another object. Here it has to be the same type. So they're not the same type. So this is going to be a compile error. So the compiler can detect this error. Before Java 5, this is what you have. You have a new date here. This is the date, just the comparable type, and C that compared to a string. So this is fine to compile. But when you run it, it has a runtime error. So the benefits of using generics is that you can detect the error early on at the compile time. And this improves the software quality and reliability. So you not get a surprise at the runtime. So that's the whole point for this motivation and the benefits. And you can see here, so here's another example. We have, since Java 5, we have this generics for the data structures, array list. So we have the element type. So prior to Java 5, there's no type yet. Now you can design generic classes and interfaces. And here is example, we design generic stack. So this is the type, a generic type. So, and here when you write a code, you have this generic stack. You can design generic method. So here is, this is the generic type, and here's E. So this is, you print the type, it's integer or string. So this is print E. So when you invoke it, it's a static. You invoke a generic dot method dot here, give the concrete type. This is an integer. Now you can also use the bounding type. So here, for example, this is to have this equal area with this E. So now you want this object, the generic, the geometric object. So you can have this is E extends geometric object. So, okay, so let's look at this is the case study, sorting an array of objects. And here we have array of any comparable objects. So array of integer, array of double, array of character, array of string. So you can invoke it. So here, this is extends comparable E. So this is the comparable. So then you can use this to compare two elements of the same type, and they're comparable objects. Now let's look at the section raw types and backward compatibility. Java 5 introduced generics. Prior to Java 5, we don't have generics. So when you use this, for example, generic stack, you can still use the raw type. If you don't specify any type, that becomes a raw type. So this is the generic stack. And this is roughly equivalent to you use this object. But it's not good. You should have this, not use the raw type. You should have explicit type to avoid programming errors. But this is still allowed to give you a backward compatibility. So because there's a lot of code already used in the past, so they'll still be able to compile and run in the new system. Now we have the syntax. This is the wildcard syntax. So there's three types. Wildcard is the unbounded wildcard, bounded wildcard, and lower bound wildcard. You can use super, and this is the keyword here. Now, the mechanism for generics in Java and how this is handled, because we have to accommodate the backward compatibility. So we're going to use this mechanism called erasure. So when you write the code here using generics, and this generic information is only used by the Java compiler. Java compiler looks at this as a string. So when you add, you have to add a string. Otherwise, you're going to have compile error. But this generic information is lost after you compile it. So it becomes roughly like this. So this is called erasure. So the generic information is erased after you compile the code. And because of this, it brought into some restrictions into generics. So this section discussed in all this restrictions, couple of restrictions, you can read it. The last section in this chapter is a case study to design generic metrics class. So we have this generic metrics class, and this are the two concrete subtypes. This is an integer metrics, that's a rational metrics. So this generic, this is E is a generic type here. That is all for this chapter on Java generics. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.